Since St. Louis has been founded, it has always been a central meeting point for all sorts of entrepreneurial activity. This was good for St. Louis, as it made it an important and meaningful city with a lot of attention around it. But with good, there is always bad. Today, St. Louis to outsiders is viewed as a somewhat threatening city, with crime being more prevalent than most cities. Gang violence, theft, homicide are all the things that may intimidate someone looking to visit St. Louis. There is one more major crime here in St. Louis that most people, even those who live in St. Louis, have never thought about. That is the world of human trafficking. Out of all the crimes in St. Louis right now, this one seems to be more dangerous than the others, but not as much because of the violence behind it, but rather that it can be kept so easily off the radar. Not many people know much about how it happens, or why it happens, or most of all, why it is so prevalent in St. Louis compared to other cities. According to the World Population Review over Human Trafficking Statistics by State in 2024, Missouri is the fourth highest ranked state in the nation for human trafficking, at 3.86 cases per 100,000 people. Within Missouri, St. Louis and Kansas City are the two main hotspots for human trafficking. So, what makes St. Louis the breeding grounds for these illegal activities? Let's start from the beginning. In 1955, the funds were developed by the people of St. Louis to help in the construction through St. Louis of the highways such as I-44, I-70, I-64, and I-55. These highways were used to connect the people of St. Louis to all sorts of other states, and it made it pretty easy. This is one of the first reasons as to why we see human trafficking in St. Louis so often, because these highways all lead into the same place, but then disperse out into different parts of the country as if St. Louis is a middle ground. I-44 takes you through a couple different states, but the end of it leads you all the way down to Texas, which is pretty far south. It is concerning because it is so close to the border between the US and Mexico, which according to Congress.gov, under a 3-page document on how unsecured borders fuel human trafficking in the US, states that some may traffic younger children to the border to be used as leeway for immigrants to cross the border illegally. I-70 takes you through a couple of states also, but then leads you to the highways all the way west in Utah to the west coast, uh, such as California, Oregon, or Washington, all the way to the west coast. Then you have I-64. I-64 takes you all the way east through many states, and it stops right on the coast of Norfolk, a city in Virginia. Finally, I-55 also takes you more south through some of the southern states and lands you right in New Orleans, which is right on the coast too. So you have a way to get all the way to the west coast, the east coast, and down to the Gulf of Mexico. This is one of the many reasons as why human trafficking is so prevalent in St. Louis, is because of these highways that give these criminals so many different options and different opportunities to bring or capture people and bring them to basically anywhere in the nation. I had the pleasure of interviewing the commander of the Human Trafficking Task Force for the Eastern District of Missouri, Detective Sergeant Brian Shanica of the St. Louis County Police Department Special Investigations Unit. I was unable to meet with him in person, as he does not want his identity to be leaked to the public, as part of his job requires his identity to be anonymous. I emailed him a couple of questions, and this is what he had to say. In your professional opinion, how serious is the problem of human trafficking, especially in St. Louis?
Human trafficking occurs in all segments of society. It's difficult to establish a number when speaking to victimology. The nature of the crime is secret, and most victims will not identify as such because of the level of control their traffickers can hold over them. Often, the trafficker is a family member or a close acquaintance. I like to say that trafficking is not everywhere, but it can be anywhere.
How does law enforcement in the St. Louis area address this crime problem?
Most agencies in the St. Louis region contact the task force when they believe they have a trafficking situation. The EDMHTTF conducts proactive and reactive investigations to include undercover operations and the use of informants. EDMHTTF conducts regular training with first responders and community groups to teach as many professionals and community leaders what trafficking is and what it looks like. Those trained can recognize the red flags and other signs and then report them to us for investigation or intervention. The task force also produces educational material to disseminate online and during community events such as county fairs or hiring events. Some of the materials we distribute provide a way for victims to reach out for services anonymously and safely without the knowledge of their trafficker.
What are some of the main difficulties in identifying human trafficking?
Well, it is a secretive crime, and victims often feel they are stuck or sometimes even safer under the current situation versus the risk of fear of being caught trying to escape the life of their trafficker. It takes months, sometimes even years, of advocacy before a victim is ready to disclose their victimology. Traffickers generally keep their victims on the move in order to avoid the creation of a saving network of people tied into one community.
I think one thing we can take away from this interview with Detective Sergeant Brian Shanika is that we should learn more about how human trafficking works and what to look out for in case we may have suspicions of somebody or ourselves being in a similar situation. He talks a lot about how it is a secretive business and not a lot is known, so all we can do really is to look for the signs and make sure to be knowledgeable of the information. Another thing that makes it easier for human traffickers to traffic people from St. Louis is the St. Louis Lambert International Airport. This airport is a little north of St. Louis, but not far, and it is stationed right next to I-70, which is one of the major interstates that connects St. Louis to the west. Every state in America has an airport, so it can make it that much easier to get basically anywhere in America you would want. The other thing about our airport is that we are one of the few places in the US that has an airport that flies internationally. That means that from St. Louis Lambert Airport, you can take someone anywhere on the globe without having to get any connecting flights to any other airports. The way in which someone would get trafficked on a plane, though, may surprise you. A lady named Jessica Lubert experienced just that. She was a native to Missouri and grew up here. She got a job in Columbia as a bartender at one of the pubs down here. One day, a man walked in and offered her $100 an hour just to sit and talk with Jessica about life as friends. This went on for quite some time, and not only was Jessica becoming close and comfortable with this guy, but his plan was also working. One of their sessions, if you will, he mentioned to her that he owns a modeling business and that she was a perfect fit for a role he was looking for and offered her a job with him. She accepted it and and he told her that they needed to fly out to Hawaii for the shoot. She obliged and met him at the airport not too long afterwards, where he had gotten them both a ticket. Somehow, when she arrived, she couldn't find the man, but was instructed before the flight to find someone he sent to go pick her up. She was brought back to a nice villa where, once she stepped in the door, she was drugged, raped, and beaten for a total of 3 brutal days. She noticed a trash man would come by every day to grab the trash, so she decided on the third day to break out of the villa gate and go straight to the trash man. And the trash man called the police and she was brought to safety. This is a majority of the reason that trafficking is so dangerous is because most of the time the people who are being trafficked haven't even realized that is the case until they are already trapped in the system. Finally, this is an interview with a local organization called the Covering House. This is a group of individuals with the goal to assist and care for the victimized youth who have gone through the human trafficking ring. An in person interview was not available, so I sent an email to Miss Laura Baker, the Administrator of Community Engagement, with a few questions on the matter. This is what she had to say. On average, how many people from St. Louis come for help from your organization each year?
On average, we receive 3 to 4 referrals per week for services. Not all referrals are qualified, and our referral team works to determine the best fit for services. We receive on average 1 to 2 training requests per month. Part of our programming is reducing the risk, educating the community and children in schools on trafficking, consent, and self-protective factors.
Does human trafficking work at an individual level, or is it more of a group of criminals with specific roles?
It can be perpetrated on an individual level. Sex trafficking, especially sexual exploitation, does not always involve a group. We have had children in our program that were exploited and sold by their own parents or family members for drug or rent money.
What is the average age of individuals at your organization?
The average age of our clients is 15. We have received referrals for children as young as 4. We currently have a 6 and 7-year-old enrolled in therapy through our community based services.
From what I have learned on my journey to unveiling the truth behind the popularity of human trafficking in St. Louis, is that it comes down to a couple specific things. The first being that we have a multitude of highways in our area that can take you just about anywhere in the U.S. you desire. The second being that we have an international airport, which means there is free access to anywhere in the world. But the most important one that I have come to realize from all of this is that it's still widely kept a secret. We truly don't know how many cases there are in the world and how many people may be in the ring. St. Louis just happens to be the most documented.